There's an increasingly common online movement right now. This movement is about saving money, making more money, and retiring early. When it comes to this movement, many people hear about the importance of making money over everything. People talk about getting a side hustle, which will help increase their income and inevitably help them retire early. Not going against this exactly, but acknowledging the other side of things, I wanted to make a video talking about other ways that you can retire early besides just the aspect of making more money. Well, making more money is obviously a great way to get your savings up quicker. Everyone who has made more money has maybe experienced lifestyle inflation, and lifestyle inflation is essentially when you spend more money to keep up with a new lifestyle once you start making more money. And when that's the case, you end up not saving any more money than if you were on a low level of income. Sure, you can make an extra $10,000 a year off of a side hustle, but if you end up spending $8,000 of that $10,000, then there really isn't much of a reason to put in all those extra hours of work. I say this only because you can save a similar amount of money, if not more, by just doing various methods of intensive saving throughout the various places that you have expenses in your life. This week on the Rise Productive podcast, I had on minimalist Gabe Bult. He's a frugal liver, house hacker, and he honestly gave me some amazing personal finance tips to save more money on even a low income, as he is not someone who's making a crazy amount of money right now, but he was able to quit his job and live a meaningful life as a minimalist, and he barely has any expenses because of the way he's living his life.
Yeah, I think going out to eat is a huge one. When people go out and they get, drinks, like it adds up really quickly, or going out to eat like all the time. Like once in a while with friends, it's not bad. But when you do that, 3-4 times a week, you're less healthy. You're spending all this money. Another one is like a car, people buying new cars and continually like have this monthly payment because they can afford the payment. And it's just an ongoing thing throughout their entire lives. And I look at everything as that opportunity cost of you spend $10 on a burger now, and that's $50 in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And then you multiply that times, $300 a month for a car payment. And it's this massive amount of money that you're stealing from yourself when you could just buy this cheap car. And like, if you buy a car for like $3,000 to $5,000, you drive it for 2 years, you sell it for $3,000 to $5,000, and you just cycle through those ones that aren't bad enough that they need a lot of upkeep, but they're new enough that they retain most of their value. So it's like 7 to 10 years old pretty much, and you can pretty much just drive those indefinitely for free.
If you want to listen to the full episode of that podcast, make sure to go and check that out in the description down below. I will have the links to Spotify and all the different platforms where you can find my podcast and listen to the entirety of it. Back to the main part of the video, however, that was just one of the many ways that he showed me how you can save money while on low income. And I think it's so important to make sure that we learn these different things, because if we live a meaningful life and we live a better life, we can definitely find ways to improve our retirement, try to save money to retire early without having to work incredibly harder. Obviously, I'm someone who's major into productivity, but if we can find ways to work a little less while also saving more, I think that can be great. So here are some ways to save money on a low income. The first one is house hacking. People don't realize how much money you end up spending on rent and mortgage costs over time. And the fact that it's possible to save money on this or completely cut it out is amazing, because housing costs are your general number one expense overall. And house hacking has been a way for people to decrease the amount that they have to spend on these housing costs incredibly. House hacking is essentially when you take a different room in an apartment, or you take a different room in a house and you rent it out to somebody so that you don't have to pay for the entirety of your mortgage. For example, if somebody were to live in a 3 or 4 bedroom house and they manage to rent out to maybe 3 of the bedrooms, if it's only the one person or if it's a couple, they could then have those people pay rent to them. They could end up not having to pay much of their mortgage at all, or actually make some money off it by having those people pay rent, or they can just have them pay rent that would end up equaling to your mortgage costs. And that is a really great way to house hack and basically live for free. Another way is that people buy a duplex. If you know Graham Stephan, he is someone who has been living in a duplex for a long time before he left California, and he ended up using the duplex and house hacked it so that he did not have any living expenses regarding his mortgage. The second way to get rid of your expenses would be to actually remove the need for a car at all. This is especially true if you're in a city and you don't actually need a car. A car can be extremely expensive, whether it's the car payments from purchasing the car and then financing it out, or if you end up renting a car, leasing a car, etc. You are going to honestly be paying a lot of money. That's pretty wasteful in regards to your long-term investments and your long-term savings. If you're in a city, I really do recommend you going and getting a divvy bike pass or just using a bike in general. Even though it's going to be cold in the winters, that and public transportation are going to be huge money savers. And I think it's a really great idea if you guys would go that route rather than having a car, because honestly, the expenses that you have with a car and the depreciation are not going to be worth it if you're trying to improve your savings. Another way to save a lot of money is by eating in and doing meal prep. Eating out can have an incredible amount of expense being put on your day-to-day life without you even realizing it. If you eat in, on average, it's going to cost much less than if you constantly go out. A lot of people get different meals from restaurants, whether they go out with friends or whatnot, and it's honestly incredibly expensive. If I had to say there's one positive thing about being in quarantine for a while, it's the propensity for people to be eating inside. If they don't, go and try to help support a local business, that is, and usually that means that their cost of food ends up going down. By meal prepping, you will also find that your costs go down because you will be eating more of the food that you have and throwing less of the waste away. It's also important to have coffee in. For me personally, I am someone who just has a normal coffee maker, and that generally will run you about 20 cents a cup, maybe even less if you don't use creamer, which I use black coffee a lot, so it's honestly less. And the difference between having coffee in and buying coffee out can be anywhere from $3 a cup to over $5 a purchase. This is something that I definitely recommend because the compounded gains of the interest or investments that you can get from just investing your otherwise used coffee money is incredible. Another way that you can get your savings in order and reduce some debt is by just not buying bottled drinks. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like bottled water, really? Like I'm not saying like that's going to be the bank breaker, but that stuff adds up. Everything adds up. That's the whole point of this thing. The last way that you can save money is by embracing minimalism. It's a really great way for you to save money. I have 10 of these shirts. They all cost like $6. I don't really have to buy shirts again. You save a lot of money if you only have one shirt to wear. If you save up all this money and invest it or end up knocking down some debt, you put this money in the stock market, you do anything with it besides spending it on the different things that I recommended you not to spend it on in this video, and you will find yourself in a much better spot to increase your savings, knock down your debt, and start living a better life and a more meaningful life with a much less burden that you put on yourself through the various means that you do if you don't spend your money on these things. All I'm saying is being financially independent sounds like a pretty good idea to me. That's all I have for you today. Just try to decrease your expenses so that you can increase your savings without needing to work that much more. And that's it. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.